Once you are able to look at your life and realize that all these bad things are actually the ultimate training ground for what you're going to, encounter in life, you start looking at your past very differently. Without my self-discipline, there is no David Goggins. I don't judge anybody. What I do is I start studying them. Why did they do that? Not in a judging way. I want to learn from you.
Need motivation? Watch the Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 to 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 to 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, David Goggins, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Overcome yourself.
If you could define happiness for you, what would that be?
It's overcoming yourself.
Yeah.
At all costs, whatever that takes. To be at the point of your life where you don't care about being judged. You can be in a room of 1 million people and they all hate you, and you walk in and you go like this. Not because you're angry at them, because you know yourself. Inside and out, and you know that you've put yourself through hell to be where you're at today. You've walked the walk, you've talked the talk, and you've walked the walk. And that's, to me, what it's all about. It's all about putting those boots on the ground and getting after it every day. And once you do that, you have a feeling about yourself that no one can ever take away or even understand.
Rule number 2, listen to the voice.
My whole life, I mean, I don't know if people believe in God or what, I don't care what you believe in. There's been this unrelenting voice in my head. We all have this voice. It's the right or wrong voice. And a lot of times that voice guides us into comfort. And my voice guided me into comfort a lot. But I have this other voice I heard my whole life saying, hey, what are you doing? Nah, man, we got to go over here. We got to go over here to that rock pile over in the corner where nobody's at. That's where victory's at. We're over there in that corner. So this voice was giving me all these answers. I wasn't a real smart kid growing up, but I had this crazy voice in my head saying, over there is where the answers are. And I wouldn't listen to it because over there was pain. Over there was me looking in the mirror. Over there was me being accountable for all these things I went through my life. Even though people put them on me, it's now mine to own. And I didn't want to go over there by myself, but I had to. And this voice was guiding me there. It's God, whatever you want to call it. But that's what it was in me.
Rule number 3, own your scars.
Those scars are real. Those scars are proof that, your past is real. So they're never going to go away. I own them. But I'm proud of my childhood. I'm proud because without all of these lessons in life, and everybody says this bullshit, I mean it. I mean it, because I was able to look at my childhood and how I grew up as the ultimate training ground for my life. There has to be some people on this planet Earth who have my mentality. As gross as it is to some people, and as far off as it is and not understood, there has to be some people like me on this planet Earth. Has to be some warriors out there that are able to take this mindset and do something with it. So that right there, once you are able to look at your life and realize that all these bad things are actually the ultimate training ground for what you're going to, encounter in life, you start looking at your past very differently.
Rule number 4, find strength in the dungeon.
I started to create the real Rocky. I wanted to be the real version of a movie. But that's the hard part though. That movie's inspirational. And in my life, there's a lot of times in my life where it wasn't so inspirational. There's a lot of lonely moments where there was no going the distance song in the background to keep me going.
Yeah, that music changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or lack thereof.
Or the lack thereof, man. There's a lot of times, there's a lot of quiet times, a lot of failure, a lot of disappointments, a lot of starting from scratch. But that's when I started to develop a different mentality. And I started to develop a mentality of, this is where it's at. Where you find out where you're at is when you're at the lowest part of your life. So I started to develop a whole new mindset. Like, the lowest part of my life used to make me feel bad. The lowest part of my life now, it actually gives me strength because I know so many people stop. That's where they quit.
Right.
When they get to the sewer of life versus looking at it saying, oh yeah, now let's see what the is up. Let's see what the is up now. Let's see the millions of men out here in this world. They're not going where I'm willing to go now. This is where people stop. And this is where I started to develop the different mentality is. You want to test my resolve? You want to test my ability to go the distance? You want to see where your life ends and mine begins? That's where that mentality started for me. Because I started saying, man, you always end up in the dungeon. You gotta find strength in that, or no one else does. So that Rocky movie was a little bit of a spark, but to become that person, it takes a lot.
Also, if you want to have more self-confidence and self-belief, I've designed a special free training to help you do it. The science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action to build a new habit. And I want that for you. I want you to build the habit of self-belief. So what I'm going to do is email you every day for 254 days a link to an unlisted video that will shift your belief forward. To get on it for free, the link to join is in the description below.
You will never learn from people if we always tap dance around the truth. It's about what you're saying to yourself, but it also comes with work. So whenever I was getting beat down, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever I was going through, just saying, I would put, you can't hurt me. You can outwork anybody, no matter how badass they are.
Rule number 5, don't live with hate.
My dad beat me, this happened. I mean, my dad ran prostitutes, man. My dad literally snatched the soul out of my mom. Like, my mom is still battling. Like, after my mom left my dad, and this is what I'll talk about in the book, she got married 3 times for a total of 6 months. I don't go there. I'm not even gonna talk about the guy she married. So this woman she's beautiful. She's so smart. All this stuff, man. This guy literally stripped her soul away. And I was a young kid watching it, and I had no soul to begin with. And my brother, he has a story that he could write 8 books. My dad just came through and just washed us all clean. So to come out. Is he still around? He died about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not for sure. I didn't go to the funeral, but I forgave him. So I saw my dad through an 8-year-old's eyes. So we left when I was 8. And then at 22, I went back to see him through a grown man's eyes. And he was the same person I remembered. But I had to. You can't live with hate. You cannot move forward. As much as that guy tried to ruin all of our lives, that's where I came from. I had to figure out the origin of where I started from. So when I was going back through my life trying to fix who I am, the up person I was, like, if your knee hurts, it's usually not your knee that's hurting. There's something else, man. Like, it could be a tight quad. It could be the right leg if it's the left leg. You got to find out the origin of where all this began. And it was him. So I had to go back to where, my roots and the origin of all this happened, and it's hard to do that.
Did you make peace with him? I
made big peace with. So we didn't have a peaceful conversation. We left very granimal. He's a vicious man. He was a vicious man. I mean, medieval. So I had become a medieval at that time. I was 22 and I was the big boy, and so I was no longer the guy who was afraid. It was now like, hey, I want to kill you type of shit. And we were sitting at Denny's after an all-night skate or whatever the hell. He owned bars and skating rinks like that, and so we were sitting down and we kind of got into it, and I just kind of left. But I had to make peace with it in myself. I could not hold on to that hate, because holding on to that hate was half the reason why I kept falling into the same pattern of failing.
Rule number 6, take control.
How far can the mind go? How far can we go as human beings? So that's, I call myself the Stephen Hawkins of the mind. He was obsessed with everything he ever dove into. The guy couldn't walk or anything, so he was like, the mind, that's one thing he didn't want to lose. And I became obsessed with it because it's the one thing that controlled me. So I became obsessed with this, what is this thing up here that just has me on a tightrope and just walks me into all these horrible decisions I make and makes me feel so pathetic and weak and insignificant and dumb and stupid and everything. I got to get control of this thing. But it's amazing that once you get control of that thing, how far you can go.
Rule number 7, know your potential.
I have zero anger. I'm a passionate guy, but I get it though.
Sure.
The way I talk, the way I come across, I'm an aggressive guy because that's what it takes to, like, if you walk into a situation, into a fight, I'm not saying be so aggressive that you're so aggressive that you're making bad moves.
Sure.
But if you don't have a little flame burn in you, knowing that I might get hit real hard, and when I get hit, I have to attack. I have to bring. I can't get knocked out.
Right.
You have to have that mentality of, when I went to Hell Week, I knew I was gonna get broken. I had to have an internal flame in me that could never be. It couldn't be kindling. Kindling, you put the water in the kindling, that shit's out.
Right. Yeah.
Nah, I had to be a tree that is burning hard. It's burning for a long time. And that's what I became, man. So it's not anger. Anger can't sustain you for a long period of time. Because once you get in a situation, trust me, I tried it before. When you get in a real hard situation and you're miserable, that anger is gone. What comes up is real. The real feeling of who you are and where you're at. You don't want to care about them people who made fun of you in high school or your dad beating the f*** out of you. Because now you become selfish. You're like, let's say you're in Hell Week, you're in that cold water, it's 50 degrees, and your balls are in your mouth right now. You're sitting there thinking, oh, dude, like, your mind's not thinking, those kids in high school bullied me or my
Right.
dad.
That's
No.
at least your worries.
No, you're thinking, so that anger can fuel you for so long. There has to be something so deep in you that drives you. So what really does it for me is I know what we're capable of. And I know that most human beings aren't willing to go where I am. And that's a very, very dangerous thing. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. Everybody has this talent.
Sure.
It's not a talent. It's just realizing that we stop way short of our true potential.
Rule number 8, learn from the mistakes of others.
A lot of people have situations where someone does something and we all attack that person, like on the media. If someone does something wrong, everybody now is perfect. And we now judge this guy. I don't judge him. I don't judge anybody. What I do is I start studying them. Why did they do that? Not in a judging way. I want to learn from you.
And what'd you get out of your dad?
I got that he grew up rough. He was very insecure, had a lot of kids, and his insecurities just trickled over onto us. So yeah, he jacked us up real good, but he never fixed himself. So if you never fix yourself, the next person in line is going to get the wrath. And we were next in line. You know, his first wife, killed herself or whatever happened, and got burned up in a house or something. It's some craziness, man. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there that I didn't put in the book.
Rule number 9, be authentic.
At the core of my soul, when I retired from the military with about $50,000 a year is what I probably make. For me, for a guy that grew up with nothing, I lived in a $7 a month place growing up for a long period of time. And then we moved to a $236 a month place. So basically, you give me $50,000, I'm rich.
Yeah.
So my mindset was about helping people. And when people truly believe in your message and believe in who you are, and they see that you're being honest and truly honest for the fact that, hey, I just want to see you be better. I don't want nothing. Maybe a thank you when you're older and you're walking around with your kids and your family. If you have a real, authentic, true message about people, and people see that you're not trying to sell out and not trying to sell them things, because I knew how I felt growing up, and I don't want anybody to feel that way. So when I give back, it's not about giving back to like say, oh, well, hopefully down the line, I can sell them something.
Yeah.
My message is truly authentic to how I came up, and people feel that. Therefore, the business is about them.
Yeah.
And I have all these lessons learned through a life that God blessed me with, as far as like, look, I didn't survive this life. I thrived in hell.
Yeah.
And through that, I was like a guy sitting back. I was like just writing all this down. I became a poet in hell, just sitting there as hell was all around me. I was all calm, just taking it all in. Oh, I gotta tell people this. I gotta tell people that. Oh, I learned this. I learned that. While most people run from it, I was learning from it. And now I'm just giving all this knowledge to people for free.
Yeah.
So in return, people are growing. People like the message. And when you have a good message, you grow a business.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is reinvent the will.
And I know what gives me fuel is I know that most people who are blessed with so much talent, great parents, great upbringing, didn't come from where I come from. They're going to quit before me. Having all the tools that they have, they didn't have the ability to examine themselves. When you have everything so nice in life, it's great to have a great life.
Yeah, no doubt.
But what happens is you don't self-examine. You don't do a live autopsy. When you have a f***ed up life, it almost forces you to do a live autopsy. It forces you to find strength from places that no one looks from. Because food is not at the ready. You know, I have a learning disability. It's not at the ready. I can't just pick up a book and start reading.
Right.
There's preparation behind everything I do. There's everything I do has to come with so much preparation. It's despicable. It makes me sick. My own personal life makes me sick. That's why I'm so disciplined now. Without my self-discipline, there is no David Goggins. Like I can't stop reading. I won't be able to read tomorrow. I will lose it that fast.
Wow, yeah.
I cannot stop going to the gym. My mind is set up in a spot where, hey, the second I stop, it wants to stop. Because I had a quitting mind growing up. When you get beat the shit out of you all the time, your mind wants to go to that nice spot where you're comforted, where you're not trying, where shit is easy. That's where your mind, it doesn't want to think. You have all these things in the mind, and the mind can only absorb so much. So all the pain it has to go through, it wants to push it away and say, let's not do that. So every day I'm fighting where the mind wants to go. So it's a constant evolution, man. I've never arrived. That's right now I'm stressing out 2-3 hours a day. I'm trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, oh man, I went through Navy SEAL training being f***ed up. I ran over 7,000 miles in 2007 being f***ed up. I did pull-up records being f***ed up. Now that the mind is so strong, let the body catch the mind. So that's now where I'm at. So I'm always trying to reinvent the wheel and see what I'm capable of next.
Now I've got some special bonus clips that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you just watch a video and you get motivated, the science says you have a 35% chance of actually following through. That's not good enough, Believe Nation. We need to take some action. But when you watch a video, you get motivated and you create a specific plan of action, that number jumps from 35% to 91% chance of you following through. And when you publicly commit to other people, like leaving a comment down in this video, your number jumps to 95% chance of you actually following through on the plan you set for yourself. So I want to know your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Leave it down in the comments below so I can celebrate you.
Where do I want to be in life? Where do I see myself? And then I start making these plans and how I'm going to get there. And I don't deviate from that plan. So that's kind of how I do them now. I mean, it's a lot more to it than that, but it's a lot of quiet time. I shut out a lot of noise. I only have people in my life that need to be there. If you don't need to be in my life, I'm not about acquiring more friends. I'm not about noise. I'm about, okay, are you trying to go somewhere? You can jump on board. If not, I don't want to hear all your problems. Do you have a solution for your problem? That's what I'm all about right now. So I'm not about whining, bitching, complaining. I'm about, okay, we need to go this way. I came home one night from work spraying for cockroaches. And long story short, I turned on the Discovery Channel. I saw some guys going through Navy SEAL training. And they were going through Hell Week and they were getting their ass just beat. You know, in and out of the water, guys ringing the bell. They were just suffering. And I was weighing like 297 pounds. And I had to make a change in my life. You know, I was at an all-time low and I wasn't going anywhere. And I was exactly what everybody said I was going to be, which was nothing. So I had to make a change.
What was it about seeing suffering that's really interesting? And I actually get it, but I want to hear you explain it. Why suffering was the thing that triggered that thought?
Well, for me, growing up, I came from a horrible background. I got called nigger every day of my life growing up, lived in a small town. The Klan headquarters at that time was about 20 minutes from where I lived. Right. One of the high ups in the KKK, son, sat behind me in 2 classes, so he called me nigger all the time. I got my first car, they spray painted nigger, we're gonna kill you on it. So I was just an insecure, scared kid. And the only way I could find myself was through putting myself through the worst thing possible. Because I'm gonna say the exact opposite of what today's world is saying. So we read a bunch of books nowadays. As humans, we wanna find out how to be someone else. What we don't do is we don't go inside. So literally turn yourself inside out. Read the book that's like we're writing a book every day of our lives. Every day we're seeing who we are as people. When I was growing up, I lied for people to accept me because I didn't accept myself. So I would make up stories so then you would accept me into your world. I would, everything I did was for someone else to like me. It wasn't until I started reading my own book about how pathetic I was as a human being. I can blame my dad, I can blame kids at school, I can blame having health issues, ADD, my mom not being around. Great mom, but she was doing her thing. Right. I could blame a lot of people. And that's the book I was reading. And I put it off on everybody else. It wasn't until I said, you know what? For me to fix this, I gotta read what the fuck is wrong with David Goggins. Not blame anybody. Read my book and say, okay, I'm afraid of my shadow. How can I overcome that? Go in the military, get your ass kicked, do things you hate to do, be uncomfortable every day of your life. Roger that. I'm not the smartest kid in the world. Okay. Instead of somebody saying, oh no, you're smart. No, don't say that to yourself. I said to myself, no, I'm a okay, roger that. How you get smarter? Educate yourself. So the things that we run from the truth. We're running from the truth, man. So the only way I became successful was going towards the truth. As painful and as brutal as it is, it changed me. It allowed me to become, in my own right, who I am today.
David, tell him about the cookie jar.
The cookie jar is something I invented. As you all know, your mom has a cookie jar, and sometimes you might have an Oreo, sometimes you might have a Chips Ahoy, sometimes you might have an oatmeal raisin cookie. You never know. It's just in there. My cookie jar has every single failure and success of my life, something I overcame. So what happens in time of life when you're stressed out and things get bad, even the hardest guy in the world, me, everybody thinks, and I think I'm the hardest guy in the world. You gotta believe that. You gotta believe you are something. I will, in my mind, reach into my cookie jar, and sometimes you forget how hard you are in times of need. Because you're stressed, but you forget, I'm a Navy SEAL, I'm a Ranger, I'm this and that, but you forget all that because your life sucks. I calm down, take that 1 second, get control of my life, reach in the cookie jar. Well, you got called nigger your whole life, and you're now the only person in history to do this, and this. Put it back in the cookie jar, reset my mind. You have to remind yourself of how badass you really are in times of need. That's the cookie jar.
So many of us are on cruise control, myself included, and we get into our daily routine. And routines are unbelievable, but routines can also be a rut. Only if you really challenge yourself and push yourself and get out of your routine, your comfort zone, can you get better. Like, you can't improve when you're on autopilot. So you have to set goals, and you have to set challenges that you don't necessarily think you can do, or are gonna push yourself way further than you think you can to improve. So you gotta get out of the complacency of the routine.
Well, the whole thing about comfort zones is if you live in one for too long, that becomes your norm. It never allows you to gain experience, gain knowledge, gain any kind of mental toughness.
Well, I learned that we all have a reserve tank, that we're all capable of doing so much more than we think we can. And only by really tapping into that reserve tank, whether it's in business, whether it's in physically, you wanna get more fit, only when you really push yourself and push your limits can you find out what you're really made of and what's in your reserve tank. And I mean, he taught me that every single day. And it just led to me getting better in the various in my life as I tapped into that reserve tank.
Yeah, I think I said, don't be a
You know, we call it the 40% rule. That's something that David kind of told me and shared with me, and I bought into it, but it's proved effective, not just in working out, but even in business or my family life. It's like when I'm frustrated, when I'm done, when I hit a roadblock, when things get complicated, you have so much more in you.
People say, man, you cuss all the time. Why? Well, I hate to say it, the best way for me to get how I feel across, I can't sit here and say, you know what, yeah, I went through Hell Week and man, it was really hard. No, that takes your damn soul, rips it inside out, and then they say, now we're going to start. It allows me to express where I was at a point of my life. If I don't give you all of me, how will you learn from me? People take so much offense to me. You will never learn from people if we always tap dance around the truth.
Oh God, I love that.
We tap dance around the truth by finding the right words so I don't hurt you because you have thin skin. No, tighten up, people. It's okay. Trust me, it's okay. You might be called nigger one day. It's okay. You might be called some Jewish word or some faggot or gay word. It's okay. Let them call you that. What are you going to do now? They don't own your life. How are you going to control that now? How are you going to flip it upside down and say, Roger that, now I'm going to harness this and you'll read about me years from now? How? That's the question. How are you going to do that? Thicken your skin. Become more of a human being. Don't be afraid of the reflection in the mirror because that's all you can be afraid of. Once you overcome the reflection in the mirror, you've done it. I literally broke all the metatarsals in my feet. Stress fractures, shin splints, everything, the pain going through my body. I've been through every training on the man, Ranger School, Hell Week 3 times, all kind of stuff. This event I'm explaining to you right now, I don't have enough time to explain to you in detail, was the worst thing I've done in my entire life pain-wise. This is when I realized a human being is capable of going to limits unknown to most people. This is where hardness comes in. People can read a book on hardness and tell you about mental toughness and hardness, but until you put your body through hardness and realize that there's walls and doors you must break through, and once you break through them, you are amazing and your body resets. But we are scared to get to that wall because that wall says what? Stop, right? But every wall has a what? A door. You got to get that key from your pocket and don't be scared to see what's on the other side of that door.
I would like to know when you're in that moment failing and you have to keep going, what do you say to yourself?
What if? A lot of times I'll be in a 200-mile run or something like that, and I'm all jacked up. Body's broken, mind's broken, spirit's broken. I start to say, what if I can pull this off? When I first walked into the Navy SEAL recruiter's office, he looked at me and said, there's only been 35 African Americans in 70 years make it through. You know what I said to myself? What if I can be the 36th? It's the what if I can pull off a miracle. What if I can become someone that no one thinks I can be? And just me talking about that, I have the hair going up on my arms because it makes me just like, what if I can be that guy that people who call nigger and this and that, and now I'm speaking at Tom Ferry's event. The first ultra marathon wasn't smart at all. So basically what happened was I was at military free fall school with Morgan Luttrell. Marcus Luttrell, if you guys don't know, was the lone survivor, the guy. He was in a bad op went bad. He was the only Navy SEAL that lived. Long story short, you gotta get the book, read Lone Survivor, great story. Morgan is Marcus Luttrell's twin brother, and I was there with Marcus. So what happened was myself and Morgan were in free fall school. At the same exact time, Marcus was in the worst incident in SEAL history. So I knew that Marcus might be dead. He wasn't dead, everybody else was dead. So I actually brought Morgan, I actually told Morgan, hey man, your brother was in a bad incident. I don't know if he's alive, I don't know what's going on. Long story short, Marcus is alive, and I go on to want to raise money for families. All these guys died, they all had kids. I want to raise money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. It's a foundation where 100% tuition goes to these kids to go to college, full tuition, whatever. So I found this great foundation. I'm going to raise money for it. So I said, you know what? I have to Google something that's evil, something very hard. I knew nothing about ultra marathons. I hadn't even run a marathon. I knew nothing about this world. So I Googled the top 10 hardest races in the world. And what comes up is a Badwater 135. It's a 135-mile race through Death Valley in the summertime. I thought it was a stage race. I thought it was a race where you run like 20 miles, set up camp, barbecue outside, and then go run some more the next day. So I called the race director up at the race and said, hey, Chris, his name is Chris Kosman, I want to do your race. So we had a long conversation. I was much heavier then, and I hadn't put running shoes on in over a year.
How heavy are you at this point?
I'm around between 240 to 270.
Whoa.
I'm in there. I'm in that range. My weight has varied a lot through the SEAL teams and out of the SEAL teams, so I was a heavy guy. But the long and short of it all was I hadn't put running shoes on in over a year. I was a big-time power lifter. I lifted weights heavy. That's what I did.
Right.
I got back home from Iraq, went straight to free fall school, and then this happened. So I called Chris Kosman up on a Wednesday. He says, look, man, the only way you can qualify for my race is to run 100 miles at one time in 24 hours or less. There happened to be a race that Saturday, so 4 days later. And he said, if you qualify by running 100 miles or less in 24 hours, I will consider you my race. I'm gonna cut to the chase. I signed up for this race. It was called the San Diego One Day, where you run around a 1 mile track for 24 hours to see how many miles you can get. My goal was 100 miles. So I got to mile 70, and I cleared 70 miles in like 12, 13 hours pretty quickly. But I was done. My feet were broken. I was stress fractures, shin splints, muscles were tearing. I was in bad shape. I was eating Ritz crackers and drinking Mileplex. That's all I had. No water, didn't know what I was doing out there. Had on some tube socks. It was just ridiculous. It was a clown show. So I sat down at mile 70, and at this time I was married. And I look at my wife and I was like, I'm messed up bad. So I literally start to turn white. And when a black guy turns white, you're pretty So here I am, I'm all fucked up in this chair. I'm at mile 70, I think I got 30 miles to go. I'm jacked up. I gotta go to the bathroom, and the bathroom's like 20 feet from me. It's a porta potty. I can't get out of the chair. So I'm peeing blood down my leg.
Whoa.
Pooping up my pack, and I got 30 miles to go. And I can't stand up because my blood pressure's all messed up. I've been in 3 hell weeks, Ranger School, overcome so many obstacles in my life. This last 30 miles of this race is when I realized a human being is not so human anymore. We have the ability to go in such a space if you're willing to suffer, and I mean suffer. Your brain and your body, once connected together, can do anything. And this 30 miles was the life-changing moment. I was out of it. I was in the worst pain in my entire life. I was, to me, on the brink of death. And I was able to chunk this 30 damn miles into small pieces. I was so driven, and I'm not gonna say motivated, because motivation's crap. Motivation comes and goes. When you're driven, whatever's in front of you will get destroyed. So I sat in this chair, and I was so driven to succeed in this race. And at this time, everybody goes, were you thinking about the guys that died? And I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't. This became a personal thing. This became me against this race, me against the kids that called me nigger, me against me. It just became something that I took so violently personal. And I broke this thing down into small pieces. I said, okay, I gotta get nutrition. I gotta be able to stand up before I can get off this curb and get off this chair and be able to go 30 miles. So I went through all these small steps, and I was able to stand up. And then from standing up, I was literally walking around with my wife at the time, and she goes, you're not gonna make the time. She goes, you're walking like 30-some minute miles. I got to mile 81, and the second she said that I'm not gonna make the time, I ran the last 19 miles nonstop. And I can show you right now when we get done with this. Matter of fact, I'm gonna show you right now. This was years ago, and I had to put compression tape on my ankle. And so this was years ago. I had literally the size of $50. I had to get compression tape, and I taped up my ankles, and I taped up my feet, and that's how I got through that race.
Was it like a hematoma? I mean, what happened
was, like my shins hurt so bad from having stretch fractures that the only way I could continue on was I taped it so I wasn't doing the flexor motion that activates your shins. So I taped my ankles and my shins up, and I got that because in my third hell week, they weren't gonna let me go back through training anymore.
Right.
So I literally went through all of BUDS, my last SEAL training, with stretch fractures and shin splints. And how I did it was I would tape my ankles all the way up to my calf every morning. So for the first hour, the pain was excruciating. But what happened is my feet would go numb. And I did that every single day for 6 months.
Whoa.
And that's how I got through my third hell week, because I was so broken from the first two that the commander said, hey, the CEO said this is your last time we're sending you through. So that's how I got the idea to do that. So with the right, and people may listen to this and say, this guy is sadistic, he's crazy, no, if you know how I came up, you realize I was just a scared kid that found drive and passion to be something much better than what he thought he was. That's all it is. Self-talk and visualization are the two keys to my success. I believed for that last 19 miles, I was indestructible. Because I took myself in that chair, crapping up my back, peeing blood down my leg, shin splints, stretch fractures. I use all that for motivation versus negativity. I use it for motivation. I said to myself, who on this earth would still be going right now? You are. You are. You gotta be the hardest mother on the planet. Is it true? I don't give a At that time, it got me to the finish line of that race. I believed it. I believe it today. I believed it enough to where my body said, he's not gonna stop. And I took all the negative things. I need to go to the hospital, this and that. And I used it all. Could even get out of that chair. You did. Who the hell would even think about taping stretch fractures up? You did. All those things I used for motivation. I started doing this triathlons and endurance sports, ultra runs, just to test my soul, to see what I'm about, to see in a 150-mile race at mile 75 when I feel really bad. That's when you know. That's the only time you can find out what the human body is all about, what you're made of, to find out limits to myself, limits to the human soul. And every day I'm trying to see if I have limits. I run anywhere from 125, 150 in a week. So I'll try and put in about 450 miles a month. Usually every day I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I run anywhere from 10 to 15 miles in the morning. And then I live about 25 miles from work. So I get my bicycle, commute into work, do a normal work day. At lunchtime around noon, I'll run again, anywhere from 5 to 8 miles, whatever it may be. Come back, work, and around 5:30, I'll ride back home, 25 miles on my bike. If I'm feeling good and I want to get more miles, I'll get off the bike and do like a short 3 or 4 or 5 mile run. That's my everyday life. So I don't just train like an hour or so. I train until something is uncomfortable, and then that's when you know who you are. The only easy day was yesterday. It just never ends. I mean, I've done some races where you're on a 1 mile track and you'll run for 48 hours straight. So imagine running 48 hours and running 1 mile track. And it's not like you're sleeping, you're running for 48 hours to see how many miles you can get. I want to talk about mind torture. My life doesn't have a finish line. So when I cross the finish line of the Ironman, it doesn't matter, because I know that, 2 or 3 weeks from now, I'll be doing something else to put my body through more pain. I believe, everything I try to do is kind of defined by excellence, but I don't think I ever reach excellence myself,
because I have my standards of my life are really high. So I don't think I ever reach it, but I try to every day. You have to be a good individual first before you can be a good team player. I know for a fact how bad Hell Week is. I went through it a couple times. It's probably the most brutal military training anybody can go through. So everybody to my left and everybody to my right, they've been through this. So I know mentally, these individuals are extremely hard. And when stuff gets bad in any situation, I know these guys have my back. I've done a lot of things I thought were impossible. Nothing's impossible anymore.
I say what if a lot. It sounds corny and it sounds weak, but it's true. One of the recruiters said there's not many black Navy SEALs. Matter of fact, I was the 36th African-American SEAL in history. It's in over 7 years. Because the water, Right. People get mad at me. It's true, just get over it. And so I was like, man, what story would it be if fat, dumb, lying to be friends with people, insecure ass can overcome this? And that what if mentality, like that dreamer mentality just would always fuel me. It would just fuel me, man. What if I can be a SEAL, man? What if I can go from running a quarter of a mile, now I run 205 miles. What if I can go? What if I can go? And what if, how would that feel if I'm graduating? Because I'll never forget at the graduation thing I was talking about, 224, like the video I sat down and watched. This commanding officer stood up and he said to the graduation, guys who are graduating buds, like 18 of them, he said, we live in a society where mediocrity is often rewarded. And he went on to say something about these men detest mediocrity. And I wanted to be a man that detests mediocrity.
What power have you found in the darkness?
First, before I answer that question, I want to say, everybody listen to this. I'm the happiest man on the planet Earth. So people may take this as so many people do. We live in a very weakened society. So when they hear a throwback guy like me from back in the ancient days of Garanimals, they often think this guy is just whatever. So if you think that I'm some unhappy guy, you're wrong. Having lived the life I've lived and seeing the other side, not being afraid to attack what was in front of me, has made me happy.
Say that again. And in fact, let me make sure I understood it. Getting to the point where you're not afraid to face the thing on the other side of the door that wants to attack you has made you happy.
Right.
It's really powerful. I hope people heard that.
Right. That made me very happy. So basically, I just don't walk around with a daggone smile on my face all the damn time. So, Merry Christmas. But basically, what the dark side is we all have a cookie jar, and we all have a jar of
That's its official name.
It's a jar of man. It just ain't going right. And in Hell Week, what they do in Hell Week, because this is where I really went to the dark side. What they do in Hell Week is they design Hell Week to find your flaws. And they do a really good job of that. It's 130 hours of continuous training. You may get 2 hours of sleep. And they beat the shit out of you and find everything wrong with your mentality. And then they start Hell Week. And that's the beauty of it. And for me, I'm not some naturally God-given guy. I don't have a great bit of talent in anything. So what got me through horrible times was the dark side. My name is David Goggins. I created Goggins. Goggins is the guy that can take anything you put in front of him. You want to break my legs? So be it. I have a way of going to a place like I did in that race where all the pain and suffering that they put on top of me in Hell Week, I will reverse that pain and suffering and I will take your soul. So every instructor that put me through buds, my job, what drove me was I wanted you to go home that night after you beat the living out of me and I smiled in your face. I wanted you to feel worse than I did and you were going home to a nice warm bed with your wife or your kids and a nice meal and I was still out there in the grip. suffering for another 100 hours. I wanted you to think about me knowing that I'm comfortable being very uncomfortable. And I want you to think about when you went through hell week, how uncomfortable you were and how bad you wanted to quit, knowing I'm not thinking that. So the dark side is something that I've designed. It's an evil place I can go that very few things can hurt me. I use the hurt you're trying to put on me, I flip it upside down and use it. You trying to use it for kryptonite? No, it's power pillars for me. I'm using it for strength. I just flip negative into positive, that's all it is. My family couldn't even swim.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we had no athletes in my family. And I was a kid who kind of got the bad genes. You know, I had all these little sickly issues, all these allergic. I was a little sickly kid. And it's funny how when people hear my story now, they want to put a title on me. Like I'm superhuman.
Yeah, like you had some special skill or capability.
And I love it because basically it makes you feel better by putting a title on me.
Right.
You can do it too.
Absolutely. Right.
And so basically,
it's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a horrible choice.
Right.
It's a hard choice. It's a lot of suffering involved.
Yeah.
So for me to get the start line, through that start line journey, I realized I'm capable. So what happens through this whole process is the change of the mind. It's a change of the guard. Someone once owned my brain. I never owned it.
Yeah.
I had no control.
You outsourced it.
Yes, right. Everybody had it. It was my dad's fault. It was the kids that called me nigger fault. My mom wasn't home fault. My soon-to-be stepdad's fault. The little kid that got ran over by the bus fault. My life was, everybody had a piece of my brain.
Yep.
And through this journey of suffering, and the suffering, I put it in because I started finding myself.
Yeah.
And I started, oh no, I'm taking this fucking back from me. This part of my brain is mine now. And I started puzzling back this piece of my brain. And through that, I grew confidence. So in this process, I went from David Goggins, I started forming a guy named Goggins. I had to really I realized I had to reinvent a whole nother human being within myself because who I am wasn't gonna make it. This guy is not gonna cut it. So I had to be a guy who can take any kind of pain, any kind of suffering, any kind of torture, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I had to have the people who, I had to visualize everybody that called me nigger, you had to be in a room of people like this. I had to make up these things in my mind, of things I had to overcome. And I started callousing my mind through a process, and it basically started with working out. It started with working out. It started with doing, like, if it started raining outside, for instance, my mind would say, man, I don't want to go run. If it was 3 o'clock in the morning, it started raining outside, my mind said, you got to go run.
Get up and go run.
You have to, because I was fighting this other person.
So you essentially tried to do everything you didn't want to do.
That's all it was. Period. Dot. Everything I didn't want to do is what got me to where I'm at today.
Interesting.
Every single thing. So where we find comfort, that's where I started getting scared.
Yeah.
When I started saying, oh, it's raining, I'm not going out there. No, you cannot say that. You cannot do that. You have got to do this. So whatever my brain thought, I did the opposite. Wherever the comfort was, I went the opposite direction. And over a period of time, boy, it calluses the out of your mind. You start to really develop a whole nother being. Growing up, being the kid I was, I found strength in different movies.
Yeah.
So I come home, in one movie I found a lot of strength, and as funny as it may seem, but I visualized this scene. I do it today during the pull-up record. I did 4,030 pull-ups.
Yeah.
The last time I did it, I actually got it. It took me 3 times. I played one song for 17 hours, pretty much. And it's from this movie, Rocky 1, round 14. I related to the person in the movie, but just the one scene when Apollo's beating the Rocky. He falls in the corner, and everybody, and Rocky, and Apollo turns around, arms up, happy. I got this guy. He turns around not knowing that Rocky's trying to get up off the canvas. Right. Mickey's his trainer saying, stay down. Right. Everybody's saying, you did good. You did good. You went 14 rounds with the champ. Rocky didn't hear shit. He got up. And what sticks in my mind today, and I'm seeing it right now, when he got up, Apollo starts to turn around to see the aftermath of what he just destroyed. And he did not expect to see what he saw.
Right.
And what I see out of the whole movie, I see Apollo Creed's face.
Yeah, fear crept in.
Yes.
Yep.
And I said to myself as a young kid, I want to be that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to win. I don't need trophies. I don't need people to like me. I just want what he has.
Yeah.
A fictional character, whatever the hell it was, I want that. And I visualized that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to become the guy who can get off the canvas and look at somebody who beat the shit out of him. Life.
Yeah.
I'm talking about life right now.
Yeah.
In life, even life itself puts their head down toward
Says,
David
oh,
Goggins.
shit, yeah.
This is not going to stop.
Right.
So that mentality became what I wanted.
Nice.
And that's how it started, with that visualization of the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And all I got to do is just keep getting up. This different mindset. I turn negatives into positives. So I would take it like, who would even think about doing this? So I would sit on my couch saying, who at 297, who can't swim that great, who's scared of the water, would have the balls, who had the balls to man up, quit a job, and go and just put everything on himself. So it's how I started talking to myself and putting myself in a whole different category, and that would fuel me the next day. And I just kept using that as fuel and fuel. No one would do this. No one would do it. Around, live, and I just kept fueling me with the right kind of message that I needed to hear that I was never telling myself. And through time, it became reality to myself.
So you start out on the first day, and then do you start running again the second day?
Yeah, the second day went right back after it again. But I started realizing I can't run that far.
Right.
So what I did was I became near a professional cyclist with the miles I put on the bike. So whenever I watched TV, I had to be doing something. So I was riding the bike. I rode a bike a lot to lose the first initial kind of weight, because my bones were just hurting so bad. My body was just broken. And I learned to get over that also. And I tried to swim a lot. I wasn't a great swimmer, but putting fins on kind of equalized my body. I wasn't so negative buoyant. So I started finning a whole bunch. And I spent hours in the pool, trying to get more and more comfortable. Not because I was going underwater. I was so scared of the water that I had to live in the water. I had to become one with the water. So going to the pool used to scare me. So I went to the pool an awful lot. And then the bike got easier. I was able to run more. I went from like 1 mile. 1 mile was a great accomplishment. 2 miles. And then from 2 to 3 was a big one. Then I went from 3 to 6. And then like they have a warning order that they give people to get ready for buds. And the whole thing was running 6 miles 5 days a week. And that was my goal. And so I failed, I go back to scratch. I used some positive motivation. I had like one day where I'm like defeated. But I started realizing this is part of the process. This is part of the journey. I had to realize this is part of my process versus just saying, like I used to, I'm just not good enough. If I'm not good enough, we always say that, I'm just not good enough, and then we try something else. I'm gonna make myself good enough. And that became my mentality. I'm gonna make myself good enough. And so I'm misunderstood a lot, but that's all it came down to. I made myself good enough. And the days I couldn't run that far, the next week, I would do 2-a-days. So on the running, if I ran a quarter of a mile, I waited a couple hours, it'd haunt me, bother me. I try to run a half a mile the next time, same day. You can do more than this. If I had to walk, I had to walk. It just became just a process of grinding, and grinding is not even a good word for it. It's not even a good word for it. And just going further and further. And then when I got through running, I go to the bike. I go to the pool. If I got tired somewhere, my legs were tired, I go to the gym. And I developed this crazy workout where I was doing volume, like 200-300 reps of like very lightweight. People always say, how come you don't have any like loose skin? My workout routine in the gym became sick. It became sick. I was just doing 200-300 reps, 400 reps on like chest, just like for one simple exercise, the bench press. And I would rack it, get back on it, just rep it out, trying to burn as many calories as I can, build that muscle mass.
You once said that if you were growing up in this generation, that you would have a field day because you would take their souls. What did you mean by that?
The younger generation quits. Not everybody. So I gotta put that. People get their butt hurt. So not everybody. Most of this generation quits the second they get talked to. You did this wrong, or they get yelled at. It's so easy to be great nowadays, because everybody else is, most people are weak. This is a softened generation. So if you have any mental toughness, any ability, if you have any fraction of self-discipline, the ability to not want to do it, but still do it. People have a hard thing understand. I hate to run. And what makes me so crazy, it doesn't anymore, is people go, well, why do you run if you hate it? What are you talking about? I don't want to take showers and eat either. I hate that too. That's life, man. It wasn't until I changed that mentality that I became somebody. I hated going to school. So guess what? That's what, 1 + 1 is 2. But if you can get through to doing things that you hate to do, on the other side is greatness. That's what people don't understand. By me running, I am callous in my mind. I'm not training for a race. I'm training for life. I'm training for the time when I get that 2 o'clock in the morning call that my mom is dead or something happens tragic in life. I don't fall apart. I'm training my mind and my body and my spirit so it's all one, so I can handle what life is going to throw at me. Because the life I've lived, it throws a whole bunch at you. And if you're not physically and mentally prepared for that, you're just going to crumble and you're good for nobody.
Talk to me about what it takes to be on one side of a door in Iraq or anywhere, knowing on the other side of the door, people who are not afraid of you, they're ready for you to come in and you still have, and they have guns, and you still have to breach that door.
That's a great question. That's a very scary situation when you are on one side of the door and your mind is racing, because on the other side of that door, it could be no one. It could be 4 guys with 4 AK-47s. That door you're about to open could be booby-trapped. So once you open it, boom, your legs are gone. So there's 1,000 things you think about when you're the first guy, second guy, third guy, getting ready to go in a room and flood it. And that's why I talk about the warrior mentality. And that's why so many people are lost when I start talking. You have the right. You're lucky that you don't have to think like warriors think. You're very privileged. I chose this world to be a warrior, and I would choose it again if I came back to this world. But the mentality of a warrior is very different than normal mentality. You must be that person on that door, get ready to open it, thinking to yourself, if I die, so be it. The only way you can go in that door is knowing there's a great chance you're gonna die. Like being a SEAL, you train with live ammo. You jump out of an airplane, everything you do, you could die. So to be a warrior, why people don't understand me, I'm glad you don't understand me. Merry Christmas, good on you. Because being a warrior takes a whole different mindset. A whole different mindset to know that there's a great chance I may not be in the military. Like I was in for 21 years. I'm lucky. I'm very lucky that I'm alive, able to talk to you, able to still run. But when you sign up on that dotted line to be like a SEAL, your mentality changes. I may not live. You gotta accept that. And that's the mentality you have. And that's what makes you a warrior. If you're scared to die, you're a bad warrior. I hated jumping out of airplanes. I hated shooting guns. I hated the job as a Navy SEAL. But I did it because I wanted to change myself. Everything I do, I'm not really comfortable doing. But if you choose to go that route, to go be a Navy SEAL, you might as well go be the hardest in the world. Because if you're choosing to do something, you have 2 routes. You can go there and be a little weak person and get through barely, and that's your reputation. Or you can go through the hardest guy you can possibly be, and that's your reputation. So my whole thing is, if you're gonna choose to open that door in Iraq or Afghanistan, open them and go in hard. Because they're gonna remember you by slowly opening it and peeking in. So if you're gonna open it, and you made the mind to open it, don't crack it open. Open the door, go in. That's with life. If you're choosing to do something, attack it. Because they're gonna remember you as not attacking it. So I want to be remembered. You can hate me, but there's one thing you can't say about me. I didn't attack it. So that's the mentality to have. If you're gonna do something, you might as well attack it, because you can do it anyway.
Right. Do you use that in civilian life? Like, do you still employ I'm going to attack it, I'm going to take their souls? Like, how does that play out in a non-combat zone?
It still works for me in life as far as attacking things, because no matter what I want to, no matter what avenue I choose, I want to be the very best. And the very best may not be I'm number one. The very best is, did I leave everything inside of me out there? So attacking is not like, oh, I want to win this or win that or be the best. The best is I'm running against myself in everything I do, and that's what I attack. I attack myself. I'm always questioning myself. As a leader, the one thing I did horribly wrong on my second platoon, I actually started developing an attitude towards people who didn't PT hard, who didn't get after it, who worked, because I took it all the way to the limit. And so I should have been a better leader by knowing, okay, you know what, not everybody wants to be David Goggins.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to go run 100 miles. Not everybody,
right. Everyone's got different
everybody
skills.
got different skill sets.
Yeah.
And not everybody, maybe they want to go to the gym, whatever. The gym is fine, but it was just a different standard. So I couldn't take away my standard for the whole of the group.
Interesting.
I looked at people like, man, you ain't trying to get. So my mentality, I wasn't a good leader. And I look back on that now. Trust me, a lot of people could have done things differently. I'm taking accountability for what I could have done differently.
Right. Good.
I looked at that. So my mentality from a weak kid became super hard, like beyond hard, next level hard. And but that's what I thought I was getting myself into. As a leader, I should have stepped back and realized, hey, these are your expectations, David Goggins.
Right.
What are we here to accomplish?
Right.
It's important to lead by example. And when I say lead by example, if you're the leader, it's the loneliest job on the planet. And if you do it, you have to be up early. You have to leave late. You got to do the sucky jobs. At least that's how I look at it. You got to be the man that is always the person who's being held accountable to the highest standard, and not expecting your people to do anything that you're not going to do 20 times more than they are, even when you're the leader. And it's all about accountability for yourself in leadership roles, not about being pissed because people aren't doing what you're doing. When you think that you are done, you're only 40% into what your body's capable of doing. And that's just the limits that we put on ourselves.
Got our leader of the 150 mile coming in. Mr. David Goggins. He's just won the 2008 150 mile run.
You're never gonna really know how I feel. I'll never really tell you the truth. I'm always gonna feel good.
He's a person.
I wanna feel and show you no weakness.
Congratulations, buddy. Thanks a lot, man. 150 mile champion, first place, new course record. Way to go. Congratulations.
I'm never happy and satisfied with one thing I do. It's always a continuous journey. And in all my races, they never end. They just kind of fall in together. So when things hit you in life that you're afraid of or you're not good at, the first thing you're gonna say to yourself is, why am I here anyway? This isn't for me. The water's too cold. The sun's too hot. I'm getting up too early. Why am I doing this to myself? That's what the normal mind says. I had to start training my mind to think about how the can I get through this? Not giving myself a way out. Never giving myself, creating a wall around all the ways out in my mind. I had to slowly start to build this wall so my mind knew this is not going to give himself a way out of here. In my first hell week, I had a huge setback. I was broken. My legs were broken. I had double pneumonia. I got rolled back to day one, week one of Navy SEAL training. I got through that second hell week. During the second hell week, I actually broke my knee. I continued to limp around for a couple weeks. I couldn't make it anymore. Got rolled back to day one, week one. I'll never forget standing there in front of Captain Bowen. He was the CEO in charge of Navy SEAL training at the time. And he had no mercy on anybody. If he believed in managing your expectations, I wouldn't be here today. He challenged me again. I was challenged my whole life, not by the mindset of managing expectations, by exceeding expectations, not by managing them. I'm standing there with crutches. I'm sitting in his office. He looks at me, he goes, Goggins, this is your last time. We're gonna put you through Navy SEAL training. This will be your 3rd Hell Week in 1 year. We're not gonna put you through a 4th. So this is your last time. I'm sitting there thinking, how am I gonna get through this? I'm badly jacked up. My legs are broken. My knee is messed up. And he goes, you have a couple of months to get better. A couple of months isn't gonna do it. I won't get healed up in a couple of months. But I realized I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna find a way to get through it, because why? I put barriers in my mind. So my 3rd Hell Week, I went in there with pretty much, I would put a black sock on first. I would get duct tape. And I duct taped my ankles all the way up to my calf every single morning. And then I put another black sock over it. And what that did, that prevented me from moving my ankle. So I didn't really, I wasn't flexing my shin as much. And I started running with just my hip flexors. In this Hell Week, it was a bad Hell Week. We had a guy die on Thursday morning of Hell Week. I went on to become a Navy SEAL. Greatness is not something that you meet once. It's something that you meet thousands of times in your life. And you don't reach it if you're not constantly in constant pursuit of greatness. So if my mind were to say right now, I'm great, I just lost. We're gonna grow. We're not gonna triple down on our strengths. We're not gonna do that crap. We're gonna work on our weaknesses so we grow. We need friction to do that. Without friction, there's no growth. Without friction, there's confusion. Confusion is, David Goggins, how did you become who you are today? I put a bunch of friction in my life, and I grew. That's how I did it. You know how you get mentally tough? It's a lifestyle. Instead of hitting that snooze button in the morning and not making your bed, not cleaning your house, you don't hit the snooze button. You get up. You don't want to go run, you go run. You don't want to go swim, you go swim. You don't want to make your bed, you make your bed. You don't want to clean your house, you clean your house. You don't want to study, you study. That's how you start to callous your mind. So that became my life. If you say you're going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go run, wake up at 4 o'clock it's going to suck. It's not going to be fun. Do something that sucks every single day of your life. That's how you grow. Embrace the suck.
If you want even more David Goggins, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
With all these failures and all these bullies and all these being abused and my learning disabilities and stuttering and everything I had in my life, they are really gifts. The biggest thing you have to do is shut off